Hello everyone. This is our tutorial on how to refine your background color study, okay? So anyway, I'm just moving some things around here. Um, First thing I want to talk about is I actually changed my composition. And I was wanting to compare the color study to this. I mean, I haven't done anything to this except I altered the composition. And you may see this already, but I'll pull up here my guide so we can take a peek here, and we'll we'll see what this looks like. So we'll do. So as you can see here, I pulled down these um, my middle ground here. I pulled this stuff down here. That's some of my background elements. So basically, these mountains I've kind of put these little hills here. I pulled down. Um, as I said before, you could change your color comp, but to improve your composition. But after you start refining, you don't want to be having to do too much of that. Okay, although you could, it just makes your job harder. So first thing, let's talk about, and I'm going to close this image right here. I actually painted this thing a couple of times here, partially because I was doing a tutorial and it crashed on me. I've been having some issues with my computer after I've upgraded my operating system this week, and I've been trying to free up some file space here. So I've been trying to go through some of my old folders and getting rid of things that are unnecessary. But as you can see here, I've got two different versions. This was the latest version I worked on today because I want to kind of make this tutorial quick for two reasons. One is so that you don't have to be sitting here forever watching it, and the other reason is so that this doesn't crash my system again. Okay, so anyway, um, I've been using these Kyle brushes. So first thing we'll talk about is before you get started painting, let's turn off the guides for that. One thing you should do is you should go and check your image size. Now, the reason why is because we did a color study, we did it from a sketch, and the sketch was smaller than our page. So if you want your image to be larger, now mind you, this is not a bad size, and I'll probably just work on this size, but this is the time to alter this. And so one thing we always want to make sure of is that's 300 pixels per inch. Okay. If we enlarge it, let's say I make this 12, and we'll move this up, and you can see what it's doing to it, and you can see the edges are not as crisp, and you can always go in here and play around with seeing what looks best. Although it's whenever you enlarge an image this way by either by adding resolution or enlarging it height and width, your edges are never going to be as the same. Okay, and so that's why you want to change your edges now before you start refining this. Okay, so I'll just do bilinear on this and keep this right here. Okay, so uh, some of my images, by the way, I paint them up to 30 inches depending upon what they're going to be used for. So it's important to think about that when you're starting your painting. How big do you need it to be? How big do you want it to be? And you don't want it to be so big that it'll crash your system. So after we do that, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look here. I've actually altered my layers a bit here on this, and that is um, my my leaves for my tree have changed. So I actually extracted those and put those on another layer. So we'll just label this one grass. Okay, we got middle ground. This is going to be the background hill, back hill, we'll call it. Okay, clouds. I'm very picky here with my names. I had a B at the end of it. We'll do that. Okay, and this, of course, will be our sky. Now, one other thing I'm going to do here is this, and this is what I'm talking about extracting here. I may be painting in my sky and my river are connected together. So what I could do is I could go in here on my sky layer and select it and just do Command J. And what that's going to do is that will actually make a copy. Now, we haven't seen anything here, but you can see I made a copy of that by just selecting it. Now, if you want to ever cut an object like I was doing with, let's say we go up here to these background trees, and we're going to cut, let's say we wanted to cut these background trees out. If we do Command Shift J, what that does is that cuts it and pastes it on a new layer automatically. Just makes a new layer out of it, okay? So it's a great keyboard shortcuts for this stuff, okay? So anyway, let's get started. Now let's take a look at our brushes. And right now I actually deleted the brushes I had just because I want to show you how to load them. If you're working on a Mac, their operating system has altered. And it used to be last year that you could just double click these things, they'd open it up. Now that doesn't work, okay? So you're going to have to drag these things, and I'm going to drag these 3 brush sets. I'm going to use the concept brush set, the gouache, and the watercolor. Now you could try some of these other brush sets, because when I was actually looking at these, I was thinking, oh, maybe I'll try the Impressionist brush set. But anyway, I'm going to bring these over here. And by the way, so to see these load up. The other way you get these, if you do not have these on your computer, is you go to Import Brushes. And what this will do is, or actually not Import Brushes gets that. What you want to do is go get more brushes. So if we want to go get more brushes, what we can do is we can go, and it will take us to a website when we do that, and it will take us to the Adobe Photoshop website. And you can log in, and you can download the Kyle brushes, okay? And Kyle had designed these brushes, and it talks about who uses these. As you can see, some of these are the industry standard tools for artists at Disney, Pixar, DreamWorks, Cartoon Network, HBO. Anyway, the thing is that these are some great brushes. They save a lot of time. He used to sell them individually on I guess it was Gumroad or whatever, and he sold them to Adobe. Now, one thing I would advise you to do is once you download them, you should keep them on your desktop and put them in a folder. I would back them up somewhere else, put them on your flash drive or put them on your external hard drive, because sometimes what will happen is when you load these things up, if you're working, sometimes you'll need to upgrade Photoshop. There'll be a new upgrade for it, and you upgrade it, and these brushes are no longer there. You don't want to have to keep going up to online to download these brushes. That's why I keep them on my desktop so I can quickly get to them, okay? So let's get started here, and one of the things I'm going to get started with is painting the grass, okay? So let's go in here to the concept brushes, and one of the problems with the Kyle brushes, that I call it a problem, is in your brush palette, it's hard to read what is which, because you can see them, but if you're wanting more detail as far as what type of brush it is, they have Kyle concept brushes, and you can barely see what the other things are. Like this big, I have no clue what that is. So you have to go over, and we'll click on brush, B for brush. You have to go over to your control panel. We'll go to concept brushes, okay? And then we can actually read and see the full brush, okay? So what I'm going to use for this is he's got some grass brushes. And so I'm looking for those quickly here. Oh, here we go. Fast Grass, okay? So he's got some different Fast Grass brushes. I'm going to use Fast Grass 3, which will actually paint individual blades, okay? And one of the cool things about this brush, I'm going to make it a little smaller. I'm going to make some alterations to it too. And I'll just quickly paint with it. We'll be on our grass layer. Let's go over here so we can see and right here on my grass layer, I don't have it locked because I want to alter the edge. Now this sketch I did, this color drawing, I actually like it. It's kind of rough, but if we want to make it look and feel more like grass, then we want to alter the contour. And so we can kind of do that. Whoops, let me just click the color of this grass here and see it will start to paint grass. And actually, we'll leave it right now. I think it's fine. I was going to alter the scattering on it, but actually it does a good job here. But anyway, as you can see, it paints, and what it also does is, if you're looking closely enough, and we'll zoom in here so you can see here, what it will do is I picked one color, but it's painting multiple colors. Okay? So it's got a brush setting that actually changes, and we go over to our brush setting, you can see here, it's got color dynamics. setup on this. So you can actually go in here and see this actually makes a nice edge for my grass. All right, and so we'll just keep painting here. And as I get closer to my tree, I'm going to pick another darker color, and it will paint a little darker. Actually, I wanted to let me go pick this color. Okay, there we go. All right, so see, it will actually paint in some darker greens and also kind of yellow or ochre, brownish colors in there. So it's a nice mix here. And we'll pick up this other lighter green because sometimes what I want to do is I want to accent that hill there and have it just a little lighter on the backside, but then darker here, so that hill will pop out from those trees. Okay, we don't want that blending it too much. I would like to separate those out. So I'm just painting here. And one of the things you can do is one of the problems with the Kyle brushes is this: you can't erase with it. Okay, if I was using a normal brush, I could go and let's go get a normal brush here for a second here. And if we use like just a general brush, okay. Now, if we paint with the general brush, and let's say we even put some settings on it, like we maybe scrunch it up a bit here, and then we rotate it a bit, okay. And then actually, this is how I used to kind of make my own grass. I had my own grass brush. I would actually kind of set this to pin pressure, and let's see here. We'll space it out just a little bit more here, and we'll just pinch that a little bit, and you can kind of get like a, just depending on how long that is or how scrunched up that is, you could actually kind of get something that has kind of a grassy edge to it, like maybe it's more like a golf course because you can see how it looks. It's much more, it's much more uniform there than the Kyle's brush. But the thing is that with a normal brush, if I wanted to use my eraser, I'm going to hit my E key here and go over to my brushes, and I use this, I can erase out with it, okay? Which kind of makes my job easier if I'm trying to change and alter the contour, okay? So anyway, I'll show you here. I'll hit delete. We'll go back down here. We'll get our Kyle brush here, and we'll paint with it. Whoops. Say we overdid it here. Let's go and pick this color here. And we wanted to erase that out. Well, if you go to E for your eraser, or you flip your pen around, you click on this brush, it goes back to brush. It does not stay on the eraser. Okay, now there might be some setting we could turn that off with, but there is a quick way, and that you can deal with this, and that is using a layer mask. Okay, so I'm going to create a layer mask here. Now, what a layer mask will do, if you're in your layers, at the bottom, you'll see this little button here. And let me scroll over it so we can see what it will actually say here. Add vector mask is what it's saying right now. So, but it's this little icon right there. What that will do is, when you paint inside this mask, and if you paint with black, what it will do is it will actually, it looks like it's erasing, but what it's doing is it's hiding. Okay, and it's important to know how to do these layer masks, because layer masks can do some great things, and we'll get more into that later on with other tutorials. But anyway, so I can erase out into that. Now let's say that, let me keep kind of putting something up here. We'll paint like that, and let's say that we want to paint. I'll just go back to a regular brush. We'll use that brush that I just had settings on. And let's say that we get out of our layer mask. Okay, so you can see the layer mask is selected. I'm going to go over to this. This means we're actually on our layer with all the pixels. And let's say I wanted to paint here. And notice what's happening. It's hidden here. Okay, so that's a problem with doing a layer mask. Is if you intend to continue adding things on that layer, then they're going to be hidden. Well, one of the things you could do, and this is something that's pretty cool here, is you can actually go in here to your layer mask, click on it, and hit the trash can, and you've got two options. You've got three options here: apply mask to layer before removing. You can delete it, cancel it, or apply it. You apply it, and basically it'll keep its form like it had, and now I can paint there. Okay, just wanted to show you that because I think that's so important, because I've been doing that quite a bit with a lot of my paintings lately. So anyway, let's continue on with the grass. And what we'll do is we'll actually get his brush again. And one of the things that I'm going to do is I'm just going to make it just a little larger, because one of the things about painting grass is this. In the background, you want to make your brush smaller. When your grass is coming forward, you want to make your brush a little larger. So therefore, it gives it some depth. Okay, so it will actually kind of, because you'll see you want larger shapes in that grass. Okay, and so say I want some of these larger shapes here. I'm gonna make my brush just a little smaller, and we're gonna paint in here in this dark area here, this shadow. And the other thing I want to do is, let me just open this up a little bit more. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually paint some nice dark pieces, nice grass blades that are pretty big. That's going to kind of lead us into the picture, and we'll make it just a little bit smaller, maybe that big, okay? And see, this will give us some nice depth there, okay? So that when we're looking at it, it looks kind of like we're looking through that grass a little bit. So it gives us a lot more depth. Okay, so that's how we can do grass. Now, we're going to move on here, and we might as well move on to the background trees, because when I was doing this picture here, not this one, this is my second one, I'll leave that one up, but let's see here, I think it's this one right here. Yeah, this is the one I did earlier today, okay? I actually wrote down all my brushes, so this tutorial will go a lot quicker, and so it's all pre-rehearsed. And like I said, I'm hoping that this will record. I don't have any problems with this. So let's go and get we're going to use our foliage brush, okay? So we got, let's see here. We're going to look for, there's some foliage brushes up there, but there's some down here. This is Foliage Pro 4, okay? So I'm going to use this. I'm going to make it smaller, okay? We're going to go into, let's see, we got our grass, we got our leaves. We're going to do the background trees here, okay? So we're going to go down to the background trees. We're going to unlock the layer. So important because we're altering the contour, okay? And we can make that brush a little larger. There we go. All right. And so this will be nice because this will actually give this tree a real edge, or these bushes or whatever. I consider these to be trees that are below the hill. We're seeing the tops of them, okay? We'll go over here to this one. We'll do the same thing. And I'm actually just kind of brushing downwards. I mean, you can brush across, but I'm just trying to add a little height to this. I might actually make it so tall that we don't see that. Okay. Like that. Now I'm going to pick this color and kind of go over it because we want to do some shading on it. All right. And then I'm going to go in and pick this darker color here and just kind of, make some marks here. So we have some darker leaves for the darkest shadows. And if we don't like that, we can kind of paint over that. We've got another darker color here I can pick up too. And this does not have color dynamic set to it, which is okay, but because it will actually just paint the color that you've got there, okay? So I'm just kind of painting back and forth there. Now let's go over to here. We'll fix this one a little bit, and we'll add some darker leaves there to give it some depth, okay? And we can overlap that. So what I'm doing is I'm hitting my Alt key right now and actually selecting that. Now that doesn't work with all the Kyle brushes, especially some of the wet brushes, because when you're using a wet brush, your Alt key will not pick up the color. You won't, by holding down the Alt key, you don't get the eyedropper. All right, so now we got that done. All right, so the next thing we'll do is I'm actually going to add some stuff peeking up here, and we might as well just do it on this layer here. So what I'm going to do is and I say peeking up because what we're going to do is we're going to go to, I think it's this one. Yeah, it's Foliage Pro 8. Yeah. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add, some kind of shrubs, some stuff that's over the hill that we're looking at the tops of. And we don't have to do too much of this. We can make this smaller too. There we go. So it gives us a little bit more depth. It makes it looks a little bit more. No, there we go. I like that. Okay. So it doesn't make it look so perfect, like this is a manicured lawn, because this is supposed to be out in the country. Okay. So anyway, let's do that. I'm just showing you how to do this. You don't have to do it to yours, but anyway, I just added that. Now let's go up and do the leaves. And so I am going to use. He's got a couple leaf brushes here. I'm going to scroll down here, and let's look here. It's a granite gloss, hatchy. Oh, there we go, leaves. Leaves color. Okay, so we're going to use this brush here. Now, I'm actually going to alter it. And we're going to be on the leaves because this thing is kind of spread out. So I want to control the contour. So you can actually go in here and adjust the brush settings here. And we'll bring our brush settings back into our brush palette so we can get to it. We've got our color in there too. But anyway, what I want to do is let's go to scatter. We'll bring it in a little closer, okay, like that. Shape dynamics. He's got the angle set to pin tilt. I'm going to change it to pressure. So the more pressure I put on it, the more it will tilt here, okay? And then we can play around with minimum diameter. I'm just playing with this for a second here. You could play with these brushes, see what they do. I'm going to maybe I'll keep the space, bring the spacing in just a little bit. Anyway, let's take a look here. Make this brush a little smaller. And what we're going to do is just paint some leaves, okay? So I'm going to paint around the contour, and then we'll paint inside. Very quick way to make leaves. I'm going to show you another way to make leaves too with another brush that comes with the legacy brushes, because there's it just depends on what kind of leaves you want. I'm fine with this Kyle brush for these leaves. Okay, so we're going to go and get some of this darker color, and also it's got that color dynamics set to it. So as I paint it, it's actually changing the color. Let me see about doing something a little darker here, possible. We'll get some of the darker color. There we go. So we got some nice darker shadows in there. Now, as I get done here, we'll take a peek at it. And fortunately, this is a regular brush that's set with color dynamics, so I can still click the option key and get the eyedropper, okay? So I'm going to be using all regular brushes and not these wet brushes, but you can play around with different brushes, okay? Because you're going to kind of have to experiment to get the effect that you're looking for with your painting. So it's okay. It looks more like a bush than it does, like a bush stuck on a tree trunk and branches. So what we got to do is we've got to punch some holes in here, because if we're looking at a tree, we'll hit the layer mask here. We would be seeing through in some areas, like just little random areas here. Now we don't want to paint over where a trunk is at. If we didn't paint the trunk there, because there's some issues where I didn't continue the tree trunk all the way up. Okay, so if we do, we have to go back and change that tree trunk a bit. But see, I'm just going to go in here, alter this a little bit, and then what we'll do is, so I'm using my layer mask. All right, now I've gotten a little crazy here. But we can always switch to white. Now that's the other thing that I didn't mention, is I'm painting with black in my layer mask. So what that does is, when you paint with black inside the layer mask, is it hides stuff. I'm going to swap the fill and stroke, so not the fill and stroke, but the background and foreground color. I was speaking in Illustrator terms. But now we're in Photoshop, so we got to talk about background and foreground color. So anyway, I swapped it by hitting the X key. And now we're going to paint with white. And what the white does is it reveals it. Okay? So that is why I like the layer mask, because it doesn't destroy. It's not like you're actually erasing. You're just hiding, okay? And so now we're revealing some more areas here. And you kind of have to go back and forth like this to get this effect, but see, that looks a little bit better, okay? And we'll call that one done, all right? So now, let's go and we're going to do I'm going to kind of work backwards here. Well, actually, you know what? I got the stone here. And I was going to do the stone later, but we might as well do it now. And I've got some different pictures here. I'm taking a look at my picture here. Actually, I might just pick off color here to save time because I picked that color off somewhere else from another photograph. And by the way, I've closed these photographs, so let's bring them open. You know, it's important to have your reference material here, so we're going to bring all these open into Photoshop. There we go. Okay, so I got a lot of cool reference to look at for different types of colors. And so anyway, this is from Steven Universe, by the way. I don't know what some of these are from, so but make it a little smaller so we can see these things as we need them. Okay, some are photographs. It's good to pick colors off photographs too, as well as digital paintings. Okay, that's from the Lion King. We'll bring that down. We'll bring the Steven Universe down a little bit. Yeah, I love this one. This is one of my favorites just because of how stylized it is. It's nice composition, really nice composition. So anyway, let's go back to this one. Okay, and that's my one that I finished. So the brush I was using, I was trying a bunch of different brushes, and finally I decided to go with for my stone a gouache brush. So let's go up under here. We'll close up the concept brushes because there's so many of them. Okay, and we'll look for our gouache brushes, and we're looking for, let's see here. It's going to be G flat. G flat, and it's going to be dry. Was it this one? Must be. Okay. So anyway, like I said, I went through here before. You gotta just experiment. And so let's go. Let's go over here to our and with the leaves, we'll just leave it like that. If we need to delete the layer mask, just remember, you want to apply it. But let's go up to the stone here, and we've got some of that color here. So this is kind of a nice look. And by the way, I am kind of painting far away because sometimes if you paint up close and then you zoom out, you'll realize I don't like what that looks like zoomed out. So that's why it's good to actually, work with your, by zooming it out to see what it looks like. Because if you stay, you know, relatively really close in here, and then you zoom out, you may not like the look, and that's been happening to me a lot, and that's why it's good to get some distance from your pieces. Like I said, I already kind of know what I'm doing here because I experimented enough, but it took me I don't know, maybe 15, 20 minutes to get what I was looking for with this stone, and I wanted to get something a little bit more natural, so that's why I'm using this gouache brush, because I tried some different texture brushes. It was just too much texture. Okay, so I just keep sampling here, going back and forth. And let's zoom out and see what this looks like. It looks okay, but still stands out way too much. So I'm going to go back in here, and let me see about maybe picking up a color somewhere else too. Because we could always do that. Like maybe over here off the Lion King, we'll pick that color off. And then we can also, when we pick a color, let's go to our color palette. We can make it lighter. We can shift it a little bit if we want to make it a little warmer. But anyway, I really think, and so I want to make this much lighter. There we go. I kind of like that. That's doing a good job there. But sometimes it's just hard. You're up so close on something, and you're really not getting the full view of it. Okay, so I'm almost finished. We'll call this done for the moment. Okay, because I could keep going in there. And actually, you know what? I say that, and I'm going to go in here to the Lion King one. I don't like that. Too dark. And too blue. Maybe this color. Now, the other thing is, we'll make our brush a little bit larger, and we'll bring down the opacity. And sometimes on the Kyle brushes, it does some weird things that you hit the shift key, it changes the flow. So if that's happening, hold down your shift key and it'll change the opacity. So now I can kind of just, maybe paint that color in a little bit to make the stone a little darker, okay? I always say it's done, and then I see it, and then I'm like, oh, I want to make that better. But anyway, I want to move along here, okay? So, one of the things I want to do is I want to actually work on the river, and we actually have a layer for the river. Remember, we actually brought that out, okay? So what I'm going to do is, I really like some of the color in the waters in both of these, but mainly this one, just because this one's a little bit more similar to my picture because I used that same orangish brown for the cliffside there. So let's go in, and what I'm going to be getting is I'm going to go and get, it's going to be a watercolor brush, okay? So first thing we're going to get is I'm going to go up here. And like I said, I've already done this before. So let's go over here to watercolor. And I'm looking for a puddle brush, so it'd probably be under the P's. Yeah, there's a puddle brush, okay? All right, so like I said, you need to just kind of experiment. See, I kind of like that. I'm just very lightly putting that across there, just to sort of, yeah, I like that. Okay, so let's say that that's going to be, we're just going to use that brush, but we're going to use another brush to accent that, to make some waves and stuff. And so what I'm going to do, and see, it's better to keep it zoomed away because you can see it better that way. Let's zoom in just so you can see what it did there. You can see all this texturing and everything. So see, that looks pretty nice there. So anyways, let me zoom out again. And let me make sure I'm on my brush. So the next brush I'm going to use is I'm going to go to a gouache brush. And I'm looking for G. Blair Dry Alt. Okay. And so this is a nice brush. I'm going to pick up a lighter color here because it kind of has this, and it's got a little texturing to it, okay? Undo that. Let me make sure. Actually, you know what? I'm going to use this white. There we go. See that right there? Whoa. Okay, I'm just playing around here until I get something I like. Because you got to imagine that this river, we would have stones and we would have rapids in there, and so that's what causes these rapids, or is when the water hits the stones. One of the things we can do is we can make our brush smaller, and we can lower the opacity. And this one, oops, you have to use shift and then whatever you're going to do for opacity, okay? Because you can't do it otherwise. But I was going to just accent that right there. There we go. And just, put in some highlights here and there. We can work with dark if we want to. Maybe something like that. There we go. Okay. Let's zoom out, see what that looks like. And I can live with that. I say that as I'm going in here again, and that's my problem always. So let me do Shift 9. We'll go up to 90% and make it smaller. Okay, maybe something like that. Yeah, okay. All right, so let's say that that's done. All right, I keep going in there and playing with that, but you can see what I'm doing here, and I'm just accenting some areas there with different brushes, and you can play around with a lot of different brushes here. So, oh, one thing I want to do is I want to do my tree trunk. The tree trunk is pretty easy. We actually have a brush for it, and I don't even think I wrote it down because I've been using it so much. One of my students showed it to me last term, and I knew it was there, but it's like it really does a nice job on bark. Okay, and so let's go all the way down here. We're in the concept brushes, and I'm going to go all the way down to tree bark. Okay, so I'm going to get tree bark here. We're on our trunk. We want to lock the pixels because we don't want to alter the shape of the tree. And so let's pick up this lighter color here and paint with it just a little bit. And then we'll pick up some of the darker color and paint with it. And you can see it just makes a nice kind of tree barky look, There we go. All right. And it's important to think about how the light would hit this tree. So like up in here, it'd be darker. Okay, I'm just kind of wanting to have some lighting there. Um, Now it looks a little flat, so I'm going to use a color that picked off of the Steven Universe background image there. And I'm looking for that right now. Okay, because I had it up here. Let's see. There it is. Okay. Yeah. And I really kind of like this color in here. We'll use this. We'll sample that. And I'm going to lower my opacity because right now it's just way too much. So let's lower our opacity. We'll hit 3. Yep, see, that does it again. So we're going to hit 0 and then hit Shift 3. I say I hit 0 because I hit 3 and it changed the flow. So I just want to change the opacity a little bit. And we're just going to, do some accenting here because this is going to act as reflective light. And this will give our tree a lot more dimension if we put some lighter bark that's a little cooler because it's more of a violet color, all right? And so we got a lot more dimension there. Okay, now I actually like my clouds. And oh, by the way, I was wanting to show you how to do other leaves. So let's do that for a moment, okay? Before I go talk about clouds. I just want to show you this so you have as many options as possible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my brushes and I'm going to bring up my legacy brushes, okay? And so we're going to click OK on that. We're going to restore these. These are the brushes that had been coming with Photoshop and was more or less the default brushes. No, it's not in the default brushes. I think it's in the assorted brushes. In the assorted brushes, we're looking for maple leaf. So, whoops, maybe it is. Maybe it is. Maybe it is the default brushes. Let's go drag down here. Yeah, there's all kinds of brushes in here. Okay, so let's go all the way down here. So this is in the default. We got stars. We got leaves, okay? And what I'm looking for is a different type of leaf. And they got dune grass, okay? So where did that leaf go? I might have gone past it too fast here. Sorry about this. I found it really quickly last night. Pencil, splatters, chalk, stars, dune, grass, scattered leaves, sponge. Maybe it's in a different area. Could be, because I'm looking for maple leaf. Okay? So that maple leaf brush does a nice job on making leaves. So let's see if it is under something else here. We got the basic, we got sorted. We got stars. I'm looking for ornaments. I got ornament. Got dashes. Yeah, I don't think that's going to be there. Yeah, I think that I might have to forego this if I can't find it quicker here. Because this was here earlier and I can't seem to find it. So I apologize. I wanted to show you that, but it's just a matter of going through and looking here. Let's give it one more go, and if it doesn't come up, I'm just going to stop looking. Okay, so we got crayons, we got pencil. There was a leaf brush we could try, but I know that's not the leaf brush I was using. Oh, there it is. It's right here. So you got scattered leaves, but this was what I'm looking for. It's scattered maple leaves, okay? So let me make this brush larger so we can start to see it. There it is, okay? And we're gonna just, we'll just paint with it real quick here to show you, because this is how I used to make leaves. Oops, make sure, I'm gonna make a new layer here to experiment with. All right, whoa. Our opacity's at 30. We'll bring up our opacity to 100%. Make this brush a little smaller. Now it's scattering a lot, okay? So if we're going to use this brush, let's go into the brush settings. We'll tighten it up a bit here, as far as the brush tip shape. For scattering, well, I don't mind the scattering, so we're just going to bring it in a little tighter there. Lower the count a little bit. Maybe raise the minimum diameter. Okay. Angle jitter. I don't mind what it's doing right now. Maybe keep the roundness more. All right. So now let me see what we get here. So see, this does a nice job with kind of making a contour. Although we're getting a few stems here and there, which kind of bother me. But as you can see, it's a quick way to paint leaves, okay? And of course, you can always make your own leaf brush too, which I've done. Now let's go in, and we'll talk about making your own brushes in another tutorial. But what we're going to do is, this brush will actually allow me to erase with it. So we'll go to E, and we'll pick the last brush we used, and see we can actually kind of erase out, okay? And we can go back and forth between B and E, okay, B and E keys, so that, not breaking and entering, but actually brush and erase. And see, we can play around with that like that. And so that is another way you can make leaves. And any kind of leaf brush, you can actually scatter. And also what you want to do is you want to have the shape dynamics set so that you've got the angle jitter. Because if it doesn't angle jitter, then it won't rotate, okay? So you can play with your angle jitter. If we turn it off, you'll see, see they're all straight. And then, I'm starting to angle jitter, and this will be manually, so it's just going to be consistent there. But then if we do it for, pin pressure or pin tilt, we'll do it depending on how much we bear down or what we're tilting at, depending on which setting you have that on, okay? So I just wanted to show you that quickly. So we'll turn that layer off. We'll go back to our leaves here. And now let's get to our clouds. So let me see here what I use for my clouds. So actually I used a gouache brush because there's a couple of ways we can make clouds. And I'm going to show you just what I'm going to do because I actually like my clouds. So I had painted them using the cloud brush, and I don't know, it just, I like that effect sometimes, but I kind of like these cartoony clouds. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unlock my clouds. We're going to come over here. We're going to look for, it's going to be a gouache brush. It's going to be G-Edge. And so let's close up these right here. We'll go down to our gouache. And it's gouache G-Edge soft. So yeah, it's probably this one right here. Okay. So anyway, what I'm going to do is, we'll keep zoomed out here, is I'm just going to sample the white, so I have it. And I just wanted to give this a different edge. It's a softer edge. We zoom in, you'll see it's soft, but has a little texture to it. But it looks a little bit more natural, like this was a painting. Because a lot of paintings for cartoons, especially like the old Warner Brother cartoons, they were done with, some were cell vinyl paint, but also sometimes they were painting with gouache, especially for their concept art. So, see, I like the look of that. It makes it look a little bit more natural versus something that's too much. And let me see about sample this color here. That's too blue. Maybe this color. Yeah, I like that. Maybe it's too dark, but let's sample that. Actually, you know what? We're going to lower the opacity down to 30. So I have to hold down my shift key. We'll sample that. We'll bring the opacity back up to 100% because I just want it to be a little darker version of that blue so we can see it from the sky. So it stands out just a little bit, okay? Just like that. All right, now we're going to do some of this here so the white gets affected. We may use this color up in here on this cloud so it shows up. And you can always enlarge your brush too. You look a little faster. Now I'm going to use a little bit of this color here, and oops. There we go. I like that because, like I said, it gives it that much more natural look. Because I mean, if you take a look at certain you know types of digital painting, some of them have that kind of look to it. Okay, so as you see when we zoom in there, let's zoom in a little bit more. You can see what I'm talking about. It's got it's soft, but it's got a little texturing to it. It's that's really kind of a nice look. You know, it kind of looks like the same kind of clouds you may see in a cartoon. All right, and so I could do this all day. It's fun. All right. So anyway, let's affect the sky. I like the sky the way it is, but I want to just alter it a little bit. So I am going to use another gouache brush, and this one's round bristle. So let's look for that. All right. So we got a round bristle. Yeah, we got this one right here. I don't know which one I was supposed to use. We could try this one right here. We'll see what this looks like. But I'm going to sample this white here. Now, mind you, let's get back onto the sky layer because we're on the cloud layer before. And yeah, I just wanted to kind of paint in like with this. We'll try this other one here. So it's round bristle brush. So we'll try some different ones because there's a few different ones here. And we can also lower the opacity here. So I'm going to lower the opacity down to 30 here. Oops. And on this brush, guess what? When you hit the shift key, it affects the flow. So we'll bring up the flow maybe to 70, and we'll hit the 3 key without holding down the shift key. And there we go. I like that. See, that looks much nicer here. All right, so this can be kind of just a lighter area, a different type of cloud. All right. Now what I might do is I might want to get some of this color here. So this is not such a teal blue in the background. Maybe we'll raise our opacity to 80. There we go. Now, also, I think I picked off of this Steven Universe. And it's a little too much, but let's lower the opacity down to 20 and see. Yeah, so I like that. Yeah, it's got some streaks to it. It looks a little bit more natural, like it's a painting. And it just depends upon the look you're going for. I'm going to show you another way to do clouds here in skies in just 1 second, actually. We can do it right now. All right, see, I get so picky. I get so involved in that. All right, now, let's make another layer here. And what we're going to do is we're going to turn off the clouds here. Okay. That's for the river, so we're going to keep that. Let's make a new layer. This one had nothing on it. Let's check here. Yep, there's nothing on layer 3. So this is the layer we're going to use. So anyway, usually if I'm going to paint, and we'll turn off our clouds. There's our clouds, okay. Let's pick a color. And let's do Alt Delete, and we'll fill that whole layer, okay. Then what I'm going to do is, if I wanted to make it look natural, like a natural sky, then what I would do is I'm going to go and get a regular round brush. Okay, just a soft round brush here. Make it large. Our opacity is already low. So the opacity's at 20, the flow's at 70. And what I'm going to do is I just picked white, and I'm just going to go over here. I preferred painting my sky gradient versus using the gradient tool because the gradient tool is too smooth. It's way too smooth. And so I like to just go in and paint it if I'm going to do a natural sky that doesn't look like a painting. Okay? And so now we got that. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, and we could just do it on the same layer, or we can make a new layer here. But let's go and get some of Kyle's cloud brushes. He's got some really nice cloud brushes here that I want to show you. Let me see, concept. Let's go down here to, let's see what we got here. We got clouds. We got chunky clouds. Let's see what the chunky clouds look like, okay? Now let's use white. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the D key for default fill and stroke. and hit X to swap those. And then look at this. See, if I want to just paint clouds, we'll make it smaller. And you get some nice clouds. All right, so maybe you want them like that. Let's just try some different clouds out here. We got clouds. It looks like cotton. So let's see what that looks like. Ooh, what is it? That's kind of neat, isn't it? Now the other thing too is clouds are not always just white. So if like we're painting in here and let's say we like this, you can play around with more of the brushes, more of the cloud brushes here. But let's say we want to actually make some of these clouds have some shading. Well, what we would do is we would lock the pixels once we painted that, and then we would go in and we would get kind of a more grayish color here. I'm going to pick something off of one of these photos, perhaps. Let's see, I've got a couple of photos here. Yeah, right here. There's some clouds. Pick that grayish color up here. And I'm just going to sort of, yeah. All right, well, I'm going to lower the opacity. Hold on my shift key, see if it, yep, I have to use my shift key when I hit the numbers. There we go. Look at that. See, if we're wanting to do clouds that look more natural, this is the way we would do that, okay? And so this will, and I lock the pixel so it's not going to paint outside the clouds, but it will give it some definition, okay? And so that's a way we can do a natural sky. All right, so let me go back to my sky here. All right, and let's see here. We'll bring up the clouds. And then what I'm going to do is we're going to do a little painting on the grass. We don't have much more to do here. And I used another gouache brush on that. Okay, and we'll see what kind of brush we have here. Let's see about gouache. And then I was going to show you about painting some small trees. Let's see here. Go all the way down. We'll close this up for a moment because there's so many brushes open. So let's go down here to gouache, and we're looking for super dry, bristle, super dry. So let's look for, let's see here, bristle, we got gouache, thick. Ah, there it is, right here, right in front of me. All right, this one right here. So what we're going to simply do is let's go to this middle ground layer, and we're just going to pick up some of this color here. And we're just going to kind of sculpt out some of this so it has some shape and form to it, And we don't have to do too much, but I think it's kind of nice because therefore we can get much more of a natural look like this. Somebody just sent me an email. We'll have to see what that is. Okay. Let's go over here to this. Now, oh, I didn't, I see one other area I need to work on, and that is the cliffs. So we'll do that next, okay? So I'm done here with this. I kind of like that look. We'll do a little bit here. Maybe that's overkill. There we go. All right. And maybe bring some of that color up into here a little bit. See, I always say I'm done, and then it's like I keep painting because I enjoy this, okay? And all right. So let me get down to these areas down here. We're going to use our magic wand because these areas are flat, and we're going to select that. Okay, and so we'll zoom in somewhat so you can see. Like I said, I like to keep zoomed out, and of course you can see what I just painted there. But it's easier to see the whole effect when you're more zoomed out. So you got to zoom in and out to take a look at your painting. Let me go and it's a texture brush. Let me make sure I'm on my brushes. And then we're going to go to a concept brush. Okay. And we're going to do, this is a texture carve. So we'll go all the way down here to, there we go, texture carve. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to sample off of one of these photos here, one of these images, and we'll sample off some of this background color. And I'm just going to simply, yeah, okay. And we can lower the opacity too. Okay, so I'm going to lower the opacity. So we can just put in some texture here. So it looks a little bit more natural, okay? Um, let's hide the edges so we don't see the dancing ants. We don't see the selection. We do Control or Command A. Okay, that's all I needed there for that. Now let's go and select the lighter area and pick another color here. And I was thinking of picking something right over here. Let's get maybe this. We'll see what this looks like. It just gives it a little texture, okay? And then we'll do one last thing here. We'll go to this other background hill here, which we really don't have to do much to. But we'll get that, and let's pick another color here. Let's see here. We'll get our brush again so we can pick our color. And I'm thinking of maybe using this color. We'll see what this looks like. See if this, yeah, maybe raise the opacity up to 50 here. There we go. See that? You just run over. It's so much easier than paint each individual little shape there. It's great to use these brushes, okay? And so I think the last thing I had done to this, and I don't know if I didn't write it down here, but I actually made some little trees in the background. And they've got all kinds of foliage brushes that we can do that with. So let's go back up here to some of the, oh, we got Jungle Build. I'm just curious. I am just curious. So anyway, above the middle ground here, we're going to add a new layer. I didn't use this before. I'm going to pick a color here and just see what we get here. And zoom in to see exactly what that brush is doing. That's similar to what I was doing before. I'm going to undo. So if we wanted like little trees here, see, this is perfect for little trees. Okay? So maybe there's a few trees scattered throughout the hillside here. And we can change the color and value after we paint them in. So that's why I'm not so picky about this. You know, I'm just kind of putting them in, scattering them about. I'm not going to put as many as I did before. I'll say that, and then I'll just keep painting, of course. So I enjoy doing this. Oh, I like that. I didn't think about doing that. I love it. You know, it's in reality, if you ever go out into the country, you know, sometimes you'll see like little wooded areas, but then you'll see like a line of trees. All right, I'm trying to move that over. Obviously, I need to move it over this way. Okay, so let's put a few more over here. I'm about done here, really. But one thing we got to do is, if we're going to do these trees, and I'm going to bring up my photo, or my regular image, my original image here that I painted earlier, and I'm going to sample some color off, because I had sampled that color off of a photograph, just to save time. And what we're going to do is we're going to lock the pixels, and then we can go in here and add some little highlight areas. And we can zoom in so you can see this. Like I said, I like to work zoomed out. My problem is if I work too zoomed in, then I just really get into the painting and I zoom out and I go, ugh, I overdid it. You know? So I'm just putting in a few little highlights on these trees. Now, one last thing we need. And that is I am going to go in here and paint shadows. It needs shadows. So I'm going to go and I'm going to use a gouache brush. Pull down our gouache brushes here. I made a new layer. And we'll just use a softer brush here. That detail. You know, we've got G soft. I was using that before. I'm wondering if I want to use that again. Let me go all the way down here to see what they are. Yeah, we've got soft touch. We got. All right, let's try this. And you know what? I'm just going to sample off of my picture. this color right here. It's more of a grayish color. And we're just going to, add a little shading. Just make this a little smaller, this brush. Oh, I undid, and you know what I did? I deleted that layer, or I undid that layer. So this layer needs to be up under there. And so now, there we go. When I undo, I just can't go too far here. So we're just going to put in some cast shadows. Now, if they're too dark, I'll do again. I'm trying not to go so far that I undo the layer. Okay. Let's lower the opacity down to 20 or 30 and see what that looks like. All right, this looks much more natural. All right, that was too dark before. So what we're doing is just adding some cast shadows for these little shapes to make them feel like they're actually on the ground. Okay, now, and the reason why I'm using a different color is because we kind of want to pop them out. And we'll take one look at a painting to show you what I mean, because one of the things that the Impressionist artists used to do was the Impressionist, when they were doing shadows, they would use a cooler, more violet color in their grass and in their shadows, so it would pop things out. See, that nicely shades that. And let's look here at what I'm talking about here. Now in this one, back in here, you can see these shadows start shifting to blue. And he's got a couple of variations in here. Of course, this is all different greens, but he's got some blues in here. But this really helps when you're working on something. You want to really kind of pop out your trees, and you want shadows. You want to use cooler shadows. So anyway, this is done. Now this is what we want to. You can make your final painting look any way you desire. If you want to have some outlines to it, I do not mind. I'm doing this all without outlines, but as you can see in the Steven universe, there's some outlines here. So if you're gonna be inking your shapes, then don't overdo it. Don't go thick. Don't do that thick containment line. You want to go much thinner, and you might not necessarily go to black. So be aware of that, okay? But anyway, I hope this helps you out, and we'll see what you produce.